Hey, what's up guys? My name is Alex from Alliance.po and I welcome you to my YouTube channel. As you can see, spring is finally coming to Europe, and in today's video I'd like to share with you my experience using Canon EOS R6. I bought this incredible tool about 6 months ago, and at the moment I'm recording on Sony a6400, which I was using as a first camera ever. And yeah, in order to show you this one, I had to record with another one. As I already said, I have used this camera for about 6 months now, and I used this camera for every single project I worked on. Before using this camera, I was shooting with Sony a6400, then I switched to Blackmagic 6K Pro, and after breaking my Blackmagic 6K Pro, it uses Canon EF lenses. I switched to Canon EOS R6 just because I have a lot of lenses left and I didn't want to make a switch to Sony, for example, because I would need to sell all my Canon lenses and buy Sony lenses. It was too expensive at the time. When switching to a new camera, I considered several things. First of all, I really wanted it having at least 4K at 60 frames per second and 10-bit color codec. Canon EOS R6 delivers all of that, and there is no alternative at this price point. If I had to switch to Sony a7S III, I would need to spend much more money, and I simply didn't have it at the time, besides switching the lenses, buying USDs. Therefore, Canon EOS R6 came to the rescue, and I need to tell you that I couldn't be more happy with the camera, and let me tell you why. First of all, I need to tell you that I'm not a tech guy, therefore please don't wait any technical specification. There are a lot of technical videos online you can find. I'll be sharing my experience using this camera. I'll go through the main points of using this camera, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and I will be talking about general usage and user experience and my feelings about using this camera. Let's speak first about the design. The design is amazing. This camera feels incredible in the hand. I'm using Canon EF 24-70 2.8, and this combination allows me to shoot details and wide angles as well. I even bought a beautiful crate for the camera. This is from the small rig, it's called Black Mamba or Black Jamba, not sure. But this is a beautiful design. It's grayish green, let's say, and this feels incredible in the hand. And what is most important, it allows me to screw my camera and to record vertical videos, let's say for TikTok, Instagram content, reels and stuff like this. What I really like about the camera and what I didn't think I would be missing is the flip out screen. This user experience is just incredible. Having all the options in one place, you can simply switch on the camera, and then here, let me show you in the menu, you can simply click here when, for example, you are recording yourself or you're recording someone. You can simply click here on cue and you have all the menus. Anything you want is in the same place with this flip out screen, and besides you can switch it like this. You can then easily record yourself. What is the most amazing about flip out screen is, and I didn't know that I need that, but I really need that as I understood, is that when you're shooting from the low angles, then you can use this flip out screen and you can still see here on the ground like what are you actually shooting, because before using Sony, for example, a6400, there is a flip out screen but it goes on top, so whenever you are shooting a vertical content for Instagram, Reels, TikTok, it doesn't matter, then when you are shooting from the low angle, you literally need to go under your camera to see that. So you're lying on the street using your Sony a6400, and I really don't know what's the problem of using flip out screen. Sony, please start building those. Besides, with the flip out screen you can go under different angles and you can still see anything from any position you really want to. There is nothing else to say. Flip out screen all the way, never switch. The other thing about the design, that there are a lot of buttons right here which you can use. They're very intuitive and you can remap some of those to different functions. What I really like about the design as well is that whenever you switch off the camera, there is a special protection for a sensor, so it's harder for you to damage it. But the user experience in general is so intuitive. It's like switching on iPhone and just simply start using it. And as I already said, as far as YouTubers, whenever you are filming yourself, you don't want to be, for example, I was setting up my Sony a6400 for this episode, and in order for me to set it up, I needed to go back and forth, behind and forth, front from the camera, to switch on the menu, to set different settings. When here you can simply use your touch screen. I really don't know, Sony, why in 2020 you still don't have a touch screen, but here you can simply change anything you want while filming yourself, understanding what is going on, seeing yourself. Just amazing. The main purpose of buying this camera was for the video. Therefore, I'm talking about video specs now, but of course I will be showing some photos I took with that. Video quality is just great. Even after using Blackmagic 6K Pro, I can tell the difference between Super 35 sensor and full frame sensor. The depth of field is just incredible. It's mind-blowing how shallow it is. Canon is very well known for color science, and this is not an exception. I'm not over-exaggerating when I'm saying that the color science and my color grading experience using this camera is just one of the best I have ever experienced. As you might already know, I am a LUT user, so I'm simply uploading the footage into the DaVinci Resolve, go to Color tab, put on my power grade, which I was using for almost every single project I worked on. Skin tones, richness of colors. Here you can see some examples of my work I've done with the camera. I was using this camera to record in video clips, commercials, TikToks, reels for influencers, making pictures with this camera. I highly recommend you trying this camera out in some rental place for a day or two, and you will understand what I'm talking about. Though the codec in this camera is very intense and heavy on some computers, it saves a lot of space, and I find it as a benefit, not otherwise. In this camera you can use both EF and RF lens mounts, which future-proofs this camera, and besides you can buy a special reductor and use your EF lenses with a ND filter built into the reductor, this switch between the lens and the camera, without needing to buy a separate ND filter with all the separate rings. It's just a breeze using the camera. 4K image coming out from this camera is crisp, sharp, full of colors, shallow depth of field. Besides, I'm a DaVinci Resolve user, so whenever I film at 4K 50 frames per second, I can slow down this footage even further, for example to 25% of the speed, using DaVinci Resolve's optical flow with a speed warp. It's quite intense on the computer, but if you change optical flow to speed warp in the last step of your video editing, then your image looks amazing and in very slow motion. After switching from Sony a6400, I was using same SanDisk SD cards for 256 gigabytes. The problem with the card though is that the record speed is 90 megabit per second, which is not enough for 4K codec which Canon R6 uses. Therefore, I'm highly recommending you using Sony Tough SD cards with a recording speed of 150 megabit per second and reading speed 277 megabit per second. This one is as well for 256 gigabytes and it costs about 180 euros. It's the cheapest one, good quality SD card I found on the market, at least here in Czech Republic. Now let's talk about the creative side of things. After using Sony a6400 and fighting with the menu system, going back and forth from video to photo and having to change all the menu again and again and again and fighting with color grading, I just didn't feel like creating anything. And that's not that I'm saying that it's not a good camera. It is a good camera and a lot of people like it, and even I like it. I shoot a lot of commercials, I took some pictures with it, but it's not the same like using this camera. Then, after switching to Blackmagic 6K Pro, it's just so hard to use in general conditions. What I mean is that It's enough to switch on this camera and start filming. Before you start filming with Blackmagic 6K Pro, with the manual focus system, you cannot record yourself properly without having an additional monitor on top of it to see yourself when you're filming yourself, without autofocus. At some point I didn't feel like filming or creating anything. For me, Blackmagic 6K Pro is a studio camera, which is not for my style and my way of living. After buying Canon EOS R6, I started taking pictures, record as much videos as I can. I was able even to push my business even further. Because of buying this camera, I offered my photography skills out there and people are buying my services because photos coming out of this camera are amazing. I'm not saying that you don't have to have any skill, but using this camera and having a possibility of switching between photo and video modes whenever you want to, dual SD cards. In one slot I am filming all the videos and on the second slot I am taking only photos. And then when I'm importing everything into my laptop, just so easy to understand where are your photos, where are your videos. Having a camera which is so easy to use is just an amazing experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you cannot create with other cameras, but when you have tools at your disposal which allows you to create fast, reliable, easy to edit, color grade, you really want to do that. You don't have any struggles picking up your camera, taking it with you. For example, for me, it's enough to take this EF24-70 with me, this camera body and one additional battery. And that's it. I'm safe out there shooting for the whole day. Battery life in this camera is just amazing. I highly recommend you using Canon original batteries because of the overheating issues. Otherwise, I have only two of those, so whenever I'm recording with one of those, the second one is on the charger. And this is actually the second thing I wanted to mention about battery life, is that whenever you are buying a Canon camera, you have a separate charger. So you can take out your battery, you can put it in the charger, you can plug it in, and you can continue filming. Whenever you are buying Sony a6400, you have a charging cable and you can charge your camera only with the battery inside. So for me, I needed to buy an additional charger, and this is just another thing about user experience which Canon thinks about. That's why their prices are actually justified. I'm not a Canon fanboy or Sony fanboy or Blackmagic fanboy. I'm just saying my user experience, my real feelings about using this camera, about using Sony a6400, about using Blackmagic 6K Pro. It's just my opinion, don't take it for granted, take the camera and try it yourself. Of course, every single camera at this price point comes with its flaws. There are some things I don't like about that camera, and now I'm gonna be talking about it. First of all, the overheating issue is real, guys. The struggle is real, especially when recording long-form videos. For example, I was recording one interview and it took longer than expected. We were recording for 3 or 4 hours and it overheated on me once. And every now and then I had to switch off the camera, pretend that I'm going to the toilet, just to let it cool off without saying to the guy that I'm sorry, the camera overheated. Though I need to tell you that I really was recording for 3 hours straight and there were a lot of takes. I almost didn't switch off the camera. So I think that at this point it held well, not that bad of an experience which you see online. Besides, filming interviews is not my main job, therefore I have second camera just in case. Whenever recording shorter videos or video clips, it never overheated on me once. It does show overheating signal whenever I'm recording YouTube videos, but still it didn't overheat once to the point that I couldn't record further anymore. Though the last episode I recorded, it was really blinking, and then in the end, when I recorded the last part of the video, it simply stopped at 0000 recording. Therefore, I understood that I couldn't go further anymore, which is disappointing, but with the 1.4 I haven't had too many issues with overheating. Of course, I think it depends where you live. I live in Czech Republic. The temperature is normal here, so in summer it was working fine for me. I was recording even in direct sunlight. I was recording even next to the fireplace, one video clip, and it didn't overheat. Just to sum it up, Overheating exists, but it's not that bad that they are saying. It really depends on what you will be recording with this camera. If you record very long interviews and you need your camera to be on and recording for hours and hours and hours, Canon EOS R6 is not for you, believe me. Otherwise, amazing camera. The safety place for the overheating is that you can buy a Ninja 5, an external monitor with the recording capabilities, and you can record in 4K ProRes and solving overheating issues once and for all. The other thing I don't like about the camera is the codec. I like the codec that it saves some space, but it's heavy and it's really intense on your computer. Before I was using iMac 22.5 inches Intel Core i5 with a 32 gigs of RAM, and it was okay, but I couldn't even play any videos from the camera. I needed to create proxies. So whenever you are filming, you are coming back home, you need to put your videos straight to the decoding, to proxy, or whatever you are gonna be using with this camera. I used proxies in DaVinci Resolve, and I need to tell you this, that few times I was recording YouTube video and I did have time to edit it, but I couldn't because I needed to wait, for example, for 1.5 hours before it decoded my footage, before I can start working with that, so I was stuck at one place. This is not an ideal solution, therefore I highly recommend you buying M1 Max or M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra at this point to work with Canon EOS R6. Otherwise, it's really manageable. I never had an issue. I always came back from shooting, I put it straight away to DaVinci Resolve, and I had my project ready for editing the next day. Again, everything is about your expectations from the camera. I'm just saying that if you don't have a good computer, you will have struggle with the codec, though you can decode it with a proxy without any issues. The very last thing I don't like about that camera is that using 100 frames per second in Full HD is very grainy. To avoid this issue, I really crank my ISO to overexpose my image. Otherwise, when filming with 100 or 120 frames per second, you really need a lot of light, or crank up your ISO, or go as low as possible on your f-stop to avoid the issue. If you expose it correctly, image looks great, and I recorded one commercial using 100 frames per second. You can see it here. There wasn't enough light, but I cranked up my ISO, I used noise reduction in DaVinci Resolve, and voila, the image is usable. In the end of the day, I'm really happy with the camera. I highly recommend you using this camera, or at least trying it out. If I were to have only one camera in my bag, I would still buy Canon EOS R6 because it's just a breeze to use. I like taking pictures with it. I was able to grow my business into photography as well. You can record 4K 50 frames per second at 10 bit. You can take amazing pictures, and at any time, whenever you need something else, it doesn't mean that you actually have to have it, you can rent it out. And as a beginner filmmaker, I need to tell you this, that renting out new cameras can be intimidating, but really go and try. It's very easy. People usually in rental place, they are creatives as you are. They're really nice, they speak and explain everything to you. I borrowed few cameras myself, and whenever this is not enough, I simply go to a rental place and that's it. I hope that what I was saying makes sense for you guys, that I helped you to make an informative decision, that you understand what I'm feeling about this camera. Maybe it helped you to decide whether to buy this camera or not. As for me, I highly recommend you renting this camera, trying it for yourself, and then deciding buy or not. As always, it's a pleasure serving you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you find it useful, please give me a like, it really helps to grow my channel. Comment down below and consider subscribing for more upcoming content, because there is a lot of going on. I'm trying to record videos as often as I can. After moving to a new apartment, I feel more like doing so. Therefore, I will be doing my best to bring you new content every single week with a useful information. And until next time, na shledanou.